Okay. I cannot hear you, but I don't know if you can hear me.
Hello?
Hello, now I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Welcome.
Did not realize that my mic was muted. I am doing a last minute adjustment here because that's how I roll. And I don't know if it's going to be good or bad or neutral, but we're going to find out. Okay, is Vespera in here?
I don't know.
No Vespera yet. How do I sound?
You sound good. I'd
Okay.
turn down your gain just a little bit, but
Okay, turn down my gain. Let's see.
just by like a hair, not even too much.
I think I have to do that back here. Hold on.
Okay.
How's that? Is that better?
Yes, that's much better.
Okay. Lovely. Okay. I think that works. I think that looks better. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. We'll see how this goes. I updated the software on my iPad to the developer beta that just came out. So it's been pretty stable, but there have been moments where it gets buggy. So we're going to see like that. Why is it doing that? I want to be able to, there we go. Still no Vespera. Let's send her a quick message. See? It's not.
Yeah.
There we go. She's typing. I put it in.
Ma'am.
Put it in the chat and the document.
There you go. I gave her the message directly.
You did that the right way. You sent her the link.
Yeah, I did.
I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I put it in 2 places. You're like, here it is.
Vespera and Uncle Nor would be lost without a wolf.
Okay, I'm going to try to scooch this over towards the camera a little bit so I'm not looking quite so off camera. Oh, there she is. Boing. Oh, look at that. I love it.
We got a dramatic introduction and everything.
I love dramatic.
Yeah.
Kind of fits with the moral.
The only thing I'll tell you is you can scooch back from your camera by a couple. There you go.
Well, I was planning to use my computer today, but it didn't.
Oh, that's why, because now we can't hear you. I need to send you a tripod and a microphone.
I need to figure out how to work out the one that I got.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to hop on like a Zoom call sometime and go through that, I'll be happy to help you.
Oh, it'd be lovely.
Yeah. I was telling Wolf that I did a dumb thing. And when WWDC, Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, happened earlier this week on Monday, I was like so excited that I went and put the developer beta for the new software on my iPad. And that's what we're running off of tonight. So it's been mostly stable, but it's glitched on me a few times. So if like I disappear for a second, just give me a second, because I don't know what's going on with that.
We'll start panicking.
Yeah.
Be like, Neil, where did you go? You can't run away yet.
Right? Let's see. Can I get a better shot here? There we go. I just have to scooch over, I guess, then, and do that.
I'm darkness. Neil is light, so.
All right. Well, hey guys, how we doing? I'm gonna say a quick welcome to everybody that's watching BookTube Writers Group tonight, and then I am gonna pass it off to Vespera, who is our host for the evening, and she can tell us what we're doing.
Welcome.
Tonight's just gonna be full of evil, I guess.
It's gonna be a fun night.
Yeah.
Vespera, what are we doing tonight?
We are discussing morals that make and break a character.
Okay, so morals are different than, say, values, correct?
It depends, because in a sense you can compare morals and values to be the same thing. Like usually morals are more of a broad sense and values are more personal.
Okay.
Right. Your morals can also influence your values. So that's kind of...
That is true.
Okay. So give me an example of what the difference between morals and what a character's morals versus their values, how might they be different?
So let's say you have like your really typical, really religious character, and they base all of their values and what would be the morality of the religion, basically. It's like, because this thing says that this is a good thing, then my value must match with this thing that says it's good.
So the value would be like to follow their God, and to follow their values are follow what my God says that I should do, and follow the books that support that, and their morals would be like more individualized, specific things, like not, stealing, and not hurting other people, and not, like things like that, like thou shalt not. The thou shalt nots are the morals, whereas the value is just kind of the umbrella that all of those morals would fall under. Correct or no?
Pretty much. Like, the value that a person holds is like the value that is decided, right? So the value that a moral holds is decided by other people.
Oh, that's interesting. Values can be personally chosen, and the morals are the morals are more like societally chosen, and it doesn't have to be like society as a whole, but like the society of a group even.
Yeah. So it's like whoever places more value on it.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. That's interesting.
I like to think like values is more so as like how a character follows the moral, how they go about doing it. But that also leads into morality, so.
Okay, that's an interesting distinction as well. So the values are the implementable actions that are influenced and reflective of the morals.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. I like that.
So what you're sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
what you're
Go. Well,
because this
you're
reminds
on.
me of a conversation that I was having. Okay, it's only when I talk again. No, I'm kidding, I'm joking. The dog does not like me. What I was gonna say was that you basically are presenting the idea or the concept that morals themselves are more like social contracts in which that we agree with.
It is. A moral can't necessarily be a moral without a social contract or some sort of establishment.
Dive into that further. Expand on that.
Okay. So technically you can believe that killing is wrong. But if you're in a larger group of people and they say that killing is right, that becomes their morality, but it's not your morality. But could you expand your morality? I don't know.
No,
what I'm
I get
trying
what
to
you're
say.
saying. So basically, the social contract, because we have to realize that when we're existing within communities ourselves, what we are agreeing to is a social contract. So if you have 50 people that say killing is, good, and you have one person saying killing is bad, then the social contract is either you conform to the morality of the social contract or you don't conform to that social contract. I get it. I follow.
Yeah.
Right, but can you so is it possible then to have morals that conflict with the social group that you're part of? Because there's more than one social group within, a society, right? So there's like societies within societies. So you've got like the populace of, let's just say, the United States as a whole, and there are certain moral things or values that you could say that the majority of Americans living in the United States agree on, but then there's also subsets that have their own individual morality that kind of like nested inside of that maybe not everyone does agree with, you know. And so you've got like potentially like military people who are like, well, killing, like murder is wrong, but killing isn't necessarily wrong, because in war and combat and stuff like that, we have to kill the enemy. That's like the whole point. And so it's not wrong to do that, you know, to some people's mind. And so that's a different moral ideology than, say, a group of pacifists that say there is no moral killing. All killing is wrong. Even when you're killing the worst of the worst, it's still wrong. It might be necessary, but it's still wrong. And so there's like, so are you able to, like, what are the implications? What are the you know, in thinking of it from the point of view of like a character that you might be writing, like what are the implications of a character that is perhaps like a pacifist in the Marines versus someone who is, you know, in a deeply religious community that, you know, values, you know, life above all, but this person thinks that there are certain situations or certain people that it is better for the world if they are eliminated, say. Like what are the repercussions of that in terms of like
personal conflict, and then having the conflict of the others around them judging them, like their family or their religious members, or like just the people that they used to know. Like, just because a person follows a particular set of moral, the value that can extend from the moral or the thought that comes from it, not everyone thinks the same. You could have the same basis for all the morals, but how a person views it and reacts to it sort of becomes like a pinnacle, or it can become like a really good conflict point.
So give me an example in writing. Give me an example in something that you've written or that you're working on about a moral conflict for a character.
I tend to like a lot of drama, but I don't really tend to play around with moral conflicts too much. Like, it is there, but it's typically like the character who's fighting against other people's moral. Like, I usually have like a group suggesting others to their morals, and it just not being like correct, or you can see how that, I don't know what I'm saying.
You're all good. It's funny because this like entire conversation is conversations that we have in my book a lot about what morality is and what justice is, and how does one define morality and ethics and justice based off of social contracts. But then I agree with Neil that your morality can differ from the social contract that people are trying to present, and that's what my book also presents, is that you can have a completely different set of morals that does not necessarily adhere to the social contract of like what we would consider moral. And then the reality of the situation becomes, then can a character not there was a question on TikTok, I remember, and they asked basically the question about a character denying their morality, or like foregoing their morality. And I basically basically presented the idea, can a character really like forego their morals or forego their ethics or their values when their morals, values, and ethics sometimes go against the social contracts that are presented in our day-to-day lives?
Well, what's interesting is that a person's morals can change due to the situations that they go through. Like, a person can still believe that killing is wrong, but somebody murders their wife and they start to have a vengeance streak, then does it really become wrong to that person?
That's an interesting question, because I think, to me, at least in terms of writing, it's much more interesting if that person does still believe it's wrong and they're willing to do the wrong because of their anger or frustration or vengeance or whatever, but that the morality, that's very much what happens with Gavin Gale in Dark White, right? Gavin knows that violence is wrong, and he and that harming other people is wrong, and he's put in an impossible situation where it's like you're going to do this, so the first time he commits an act of violence, it is out of rage and anger and in defense of a person he loves, and then that has consequences that he accepts because he knows what he did was wrong, and he accepts the consequences of that, in terms of a prison sentence. And then the second time he commits an act of violence, it is again out of rage and in retribution for someone that he cares about being hurt, and again accepts the consequences of that. Says, I know that what I did was wrong, but I couldn't not do it. And so he accepts the extension of his sentence, based on that. But then he gets pulled out and put in a situation where he has to do violence, and there isn't consequences, but there would be consequences if he didn't. And so then he starts struggling with his own morality of, I don't even want to be doing this. This isn't out of a sense of duty or it's wrong, but I have to do it. And so I think that that's an interesting way to have that character, because we all have values and morals that we break every day. I think anyone who says that they don't is not being honest with themselves. We all have things that we would claim as our own values and our own morals that we act in contradiction to on a daily basis.
I like how Neil is light, Wolf is medium, and I'm just dark.
Or a gradient. It's so funny, Neil. What do you call it? What you're talking about? What do you call it? Dark White. Is that my book is in complete antithesis or contradictory to your book, in that my book presents the idea that sometimes violence is necessary and a necessary response to violence. Like, a lot of people assume that violence is just a physical act, but violence can also be the fact that nobody speaks out when harm is done onto you. Violence can be about somebody not providing the support for you. A contribution of violence can be the violence of the soul, the mind, and the body. And so my book presents like this idea that you cannot speak the language of peace to the language of violence, because they are contradictory languages, and people who speak violence do not speak the language of peace.
Yes.
See, yes.
Vespera, go.
What's interesting about morals and values is that how we as writers manage to portray our characters as human. But there are times of where we have the overly annoying moralistic character that just, it's like, oh no, that's bad, don't do it, no! Like one of those goody two-shoe characters.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to ever stray, and they always seem to be lecturing.
And it's so funny again because I would say a character like that who won't break their own morality is enacting forms of violence without knowing that they are, because it's a violence of the mind or the violence of the soul.
Expand on that.
Okay, so here's the thing. All right, so I'm gonna talk from like a personal experience, first off, and then like expand on it, because I usually use real world examples as examples of the reality of the situation is that the system in itself is inherently violent. So I'm talking about societal thing. When we have homeless individuals, for example, starving on the street because they don't have food or they don't have shelter, or they're dying of cold and temperature, people who basically ignore those homeless individuals without any support are still enacting and still perpetuating the system of violence.
So inaction is violent in itself.
Yes, exactly.
It can be. Because you're allowing someone else to perpetuate the violence. Just because you ignore it, and just because you're like, oh, that's nice. I'm not a part of it, so it's not me. It kind of is.
Okay, but
because you know it's happening.
To that, then there are like there are so many moments of desperation and need in the world that you as an individual cannot possibly do something about all of them all the time. And so are you committing an act of violence by living your own life? Like, say you're a good person and you donate to the food bank and you go to protests in support of important causes and stuff, but also like you buy a new TV for your house sometimes, and maybe like you drive an SUV instead of a hybrid, and and are you committing acts of violence in every moment that you're not supporting someone that is in need?
I think it's personal.
I'd love to respond to this question.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Because this is like all. You're tickling my brain, because this is exactly like the thematics of my book and stuff like that. Like, so the reality of the situation is not necessarily about not committing any acts of violence. It's more about the understanding that you are committing acts of violence. Does that make sense? And so every action that you take is more about harm reduction than not committing violence. But then there are more direct like forms of violence that people commit. Like one of them is my first book talks about the bystander defect, and that is a very direct harm of violence done onto somebody. I've been in situations before, and I've seen these situations before where people will take out their phones and they'll record what's going on, or they'll just stand around but do nothing while harm is being done onto another person. The reality of the situation is that I get that not everybody is saying, I'm not going to tell this story for kudos or praise. But the reality of the situation is that I'm the type of person who recently I was at the grocery store, and I saw two individuals who were wearing street clothes, and another individual who just had water in their hands and like one of those microwavable rice bowl things. And like the person was telling these two people in street clothes, don't put your hands on me, let go of me. And I went, oh, what the fuck is going on here? And what I did was I literally rolled down the window of the car and I'm like, what's going on here? They both told me that they were cops. And they grabbed this person and they dragged the individual off. And I actually got out of the car. I picked up the rice bowl and I picked up the water bottle and some bandages. I walked back into the store and I said, hey, can I just pay for these? And that person can like just walk or whatever. And they're like, no, you can't do that because, some reason. And you're like, but that's just basic necessities that they obviously needed. Like, people don't just go out to steal them because they wanted to steal. This is bandages, rice, and water. Are we thing? But not everybody who not everybody would be like me who actually comes out and picks that stuff up. And I would say that they are committing a form of violence because they are seeing something and they don't do anything to act upon it.
Well, it's because we're taught not to. Like, if you look at it in our whole entire society, it's just about, no, don't do it. They did something wrong. But it doesn't matter the reason why they did it because it's still wrong. So we need to judge them with the harshest way possible instead of saying, hey, what's going on? Or paying attention to the items because we're so basically visually blind for some of this stuff. Like, they don't care that this person needed a bowl of rice or that water or those bandages. They're not going to think why they needed them. They're not going to take pity unless they have a little bit more
Right.
kindness.
So going back to
And the
sorry.
problem... No,
Going
you
back
go.
to your example of a person who goes and does protest and does this, is that they're already doing what they can to reduce harm. I'm talking about the people who don't even do anything to reduce harm at all, right? Like they don't, and like even the simplest act of reduction of harm is being able to do like the research. Does that make sense too? It's being able to go out and be like, oh, I didn't.
Okay. So another example. You've got a character and they don't go to protests and they don't donate to food banks or anything like that. But they are kind to people that they meet when they run across people. If they walk past a homeless person on the street with a hat out, they put $1 in. They just kind of live their lives, and they're raising their kids, and they're going to the grocery store, and they're buying food, and they're paying for Netflix, and they're just living a perfectly like average life. They are not doing anything to cause harm to people, but they're not spending their free time going out to support people that are...
They're doing what their value of good is, what their value of morality
right. But
is.
are they committing violence?
I would say, what do you call it? So this is all dependent on the level of a person's ability to see into the scope of the world, correct? Right? So like the thing is that they give money to homeless individuals because they know that it's the right thing to do. But they don't necessarily understand like the systemic like impact. Reality of the situation is that like they are reducing harm in the level of their own understanding. But where I believe that it starts to become violent is when a person is educated, right? When you're being told, oh, the reason why they're homeless is because of these systemic issues, and the reason it exists is because of the system, and then your choice to ignore it and just do your good diligence is when it becomes violent, instead of like going out and doing extra steps.
It's an interesting, and so like in terms of bringing it back to the writing, when you're developing a character, whether it be a main character or a supporting character, how does that like understanding of that character inform kind of how you develop the story and that character's involvement in the story and that character's role, be it protagonist, antagonist, or just side character? How does that understanding of their morality and their interaction with the world like kind of inform the development of the character?
So okay, so I'm gonna talk about book 1 of Shadow Game because like it's what I got. So
It's getting a little too dark. I am going to turn on my
probably. So in book 1, we have a character named Dimitri, and Dimitri essentially is a disabled individual, and he he's not necessarily, he wouldn't be considered somebody who moralistically would have chosen the act of violence or the act of killing people. It wasn't like he decided that he was going to be a murderer someday. When I'm a real boy, I'm going to murder people. Anyway, that was a joke. What do you call it? But he was placed in a situation that was considered an act of violence, against him from the community, and an act of violence against him in the system. So in the story, it proposes this idea or this concept, right, that he is a disabled individual with a service dog. And service dogs are notoriously expensive. They're really, it takes years for them to be trained. It takes years to find the right dog with the right temperament and the right personality. A lot of people think that they can just slap a vest on and like the dog will be a service dog, and that's not reality. You have to check its personality, its temper. You have to make sure that it is, willing and desiring to work. And just because that breed is a working breed does not necessarily mean that the task you're giving it is the task that is for that dog, right? So you have to put in all of that factor and all of that concept into the thing. And as a disabled individual, you kind of expect your community to protect you. You kind of expect your community to come and be like, I'm going to protect you. And the reality of the situation is that's not the case. And that's kind of what happened to Dimitri, is that Dimitri, he goes to this world's version of what we would consider a target. He sees a dog that is not behaving appropriately, because I never want to say that somebody's service dog is not a service dog, but I would say the dog is not behaving appropriately. We have things in place in America called the ADA, which allows employees to ask a dog to leave if they're being disruptive. Whether or not it's a service dog doesn't matter. If your dog is being disruptive, it can be asked to leave. He goes up to the employee. He says, this dog is being very disruptive. It's pulling on the leash. It's growling at people. It's baring its teeth. And, your expectation is that your community is going to protect you. But the reality of the situation is that the employee basically said they're allowed to be here and move on, essentially. And what ended up happening was Dimitri's dog gets killed by the other dog. That does happen. My service dog actually was attacked in the store because of that reason, and half of the reason why I wrote the book. And then, what do you call it? When Dimitri tried to get some justice, or some, not even justice isn't even the right word, some support, his community failed him. So there were individuals who were bystanders who just watched what happened between the dogs. When it was time for them to report the what happened with the dogs, they gave either false reports or not enough information, or their information changed. I've been in situations like that before, where after the situation, before the police come, everybody's like, oh, you were okay, that other person was in the wrong. But then they get to the police and they're like, I don't know what happened, I just was there for a few seconds. You're like, fuck. And then, what do you call it? And then afterwards, and then the individual with the fake service dog, we put that in quotation marks again, what do you call it, doesn't get any repercussions. The police don't have enough information. It's all hearsay. They don't really know what happened. They can't tell who's lying. And all of that falls onto Dimitri. The cost of getting a new service dog, the cost of vet bills, the cost of, the emotional toil of losing a pet. And then basically the book presents, or this idea or this concept, the book basically asks the question whether or not, what do you call it, Dimitri going out to seeking his own sense of justice against these people is right or wrong. For Dimitri, he feels it is right to do. These people did not act. They failed to protect him. They failed to protect his dog. They failed to protect him as a disabled individual. And they failed to come to their community. And then the system failed him. And that is ultimately the reason why he goes out and kills the people who basically allowed this to happen. And like that's how his morality was questioned. His morality was questioned of, well, do I just suck it up and roll over on my back and show my belly and whatever? I'll just get a new dog and get, pay all of these fees, or do I go out and do I kill these people? I love it. I killed the conversation.
No, you're doing great, man. You didn't kill
No,
the
it's
conversation.
I was actually like waiting for Vespera to respond, but because it's her show. But
Yeah. It's okay. No, what I was saying, but what if a character had to make, like, there's other choices, but a character feels like between two bad choices, one of the badder choices, one of the, excuse me, you have a character. There's other choices that people can see that a character cannot see, or that a person cannot see. But to that person or to the character who only has two options or only has this is what they see right now.
Right. Although, and I'm gonna pick on both of you right now. I feel like sometimes that representation of like, what do you call it? That there's more than one option comes from a very like Western centric white point of view.
no, I agree with you. I think that there's very often not more than one option.
Hmm.
No,
I
but
I
to
think
other people,
that is in fact the impetus of great narrative storytelling is when the outside world would look at it and go, well, like you have all these options. You could have done it this way, you could have done it that way, and the character says
exactly.
no. There was only one way to go. There was only one, because you don't understand that this thing that you are claiming as an option is not an option. Like,
Right.
and
Exactly. And that goes back to Dimitri, my character. He really, like, he didn't see any other option. Like, what was he supposed to do? He didn't have the kind of money to pay for another dog. He didn't have the money for a vet bill. Well, like,
well, so I mean that comes down to the narrative, right?
right,
Because
exactly.
yes, he doesn't have the money to pay for another service dog or a vet bill or anything like that, but killing the people that caused the dog's death does not get him another dog, right?
No,
So
it
it
doesn't.
does not
Makes them
become a
feel
matter of, I didn't have another option except to kill these people. Yeah, you did. You had the option of just not having a service dog and not killing the people. Like,
Right.
because otherwise you've killed the people, you still don't have another service dog. Like,
Right.
and now you're
it doesn't solve the problem. It solves a different problem, an emotional problem, but which is perfect for like the purposes of the narrative, but it's still like, it's still questionable in terms of like morality of the choice.
Right,
well,
but well, and here's the thing though, it's funny because you kind of contradicted yourself, which we were talking about contradictions about what do you call it, about options. Well, he could have not had a service dog. He had a stroke and had mobility issues. The service dog usually helps with the mobility issues, so it's not necessarily like he couldn't have the service dog. And I mean, honestly, this
Right,
is
but killing the people does not get him a service dog. It doesn't
no.
reverse anything.
No, see, here's the
no, but it
thing, but
helps with his emotional trauma a little bit.
well, well, no, here's the thing.
I would argue that point, but
No. See, but the thing is that in the book, it already presents that concept. Dimitri already knew that it wasn't going to get him a new service dog. He didn't kill those people. Why do you call it, for a new service dog or for vengeance? And actually, the reality of the situation is that when you read the book, you realize that Dimitri killed them basically to send a message.
right.
Yeah.
And I get that. But my point is, when you're talking about did he have a choice? Yeah, he still had a choice. Like, I agree that there are situations where a person is put into a position where they don't have a choice. Like, I'm going to give an example of my work in practice, right? Okay, and I'm going to give this example, and there is going to be every bit the same argument that I just made against this, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. So I've got this woman. Her name is Viral Youngblood, and she is a kid. She's a young adult in college. Actually, after college, in law school, and she goes to law school in Nashville, and just can't afford it, and meets a woman who says, well, you can make some money if you come and work at my adult club, my gentleman's club. And so she does that, and then that leads to a situation where she is engaged in I think it's YouTube. We can everyone want. She ends up engaged in. She becomes a call girl, and she does this in order to pay for law school, because she doesn't have the ability to get loans, and she doesn't have enough to, like, she can't get a scholarship that pays for the whole thing. She has to pay for law school, so she becomes a exotic dancer and then a call girl to pay for law school, and she does. She pays for law school. She becomes a lawyer. She passes the bar, and she starts working as a lawyer, but she wasn't at the top of her class. She didn't have all the bona fides to get like a fancy law job. So she opens up, she hangs her own shingle and opens up her own practice in like a strip mall. And it's not enough. She can't make enough from clients. And so she continues to be a call girl at night while she is a lawyer. And that is literally her feeling like she has no choice. There aren't options there. She did this thing to try to. She felt like she had no options in the first place, and so she did this thing to get through law school, because that was going to be her savior. She was going to graduate law school, and then she was going to be able to be out. But then it wasn't enough. She couldn't afford, and so she literally lives in her office and works as a lawyer during the day and a call girl at night. And she does not think that she has any other options in order to live. She can't make a living she can't make enough as a lawyer to live. And so she has to do this thing that is against her morals. I mean, obviously, as a lawyer, she certainly is not looking to break the law, but it's the only thing that she has available to her.
So here's the thing, Neil. You're going to start learning that I'm probably the morally gray character. I actually agree with your character. I believe that
being in the middle.
Yeah. What do you call it? Here's the thing is I believe that a person does not have an option if the choice is between making this choice or dying, right?
Yeah.
Even the same thing.
I agree with that.
Yeah, exactly. So even with the whole entire Dimitri situation, I feel like what's not being understood here is that without my service dog, I would die. Right. And that sounds dramatic to a lot of people, but the reality of the situation is that service dogs are trained for life-threatening conditions.
I understand all that. Okay. My my argument here is that the difference is she is doing something that allows her to live. She is doing something that gets her the money to be able to buy food and pay for her law office and all of that. And it's against her morals, but she's doing it because it does actually provide her the thing that she needs to live, money.
My argument
in your
is,
situation, if when they go out and kill all the people that caused their service dog to die, it does not provide them the thing that they need to continue to survive. It does not provide them a new service dog.
well, here's the thing. Here's my argument with that, though.
And I don't care about that in terms of like the story. Like I think it's still a good. I think it's still a good story. Like John Wick doesn't have to go and murder everyone that was involved with, everyone that was ever connected to the guy, the stupid kid that killed his dog. He doesn't have to, but it sure makes a fucking good narrative. So I'm not criticizing you in terms of narrative. I'm just criticizing it in terms of you need to do this, and therefore it justifies the moral contradiction.
No, see, here's the thing, though. Is I'm not taking it as criticism. I'm having fun. What do you call it? I would argue, though, and that's something that the book touches upon too, is that people assume that Dimitri did this because he wants to live. But the reality of the situation, okay, so I'm going to use personal experience, but that's because I'm saying, and I understand his position. The reality of the situation is that if like Social Security disability was ever cut and they decided that they were never going to give it to somebody, my services are the difference between me being in an apartment and me being homeless again. Like that's the only, like that's the reality of the situation that I'm in. The reality of the situation is that a lot of disabled people are living in a situation where even when we have the like benefits that we do, we're still in survival mode. And a lot of people, it become like even I have this personal feeling sometimes, and I know that this is a little dark, but the reality of the situation is that sometimes I don't want to live in survival mode. And what do you call it? And for Dimitri, he didn't want to live in survival mode anymore. He kind of already knew that this is really dark, but I'm speaking from the experience of a disabled person. He knew his life was already over. It takes like 5-6 years to train another dog, and he already has he's already had a stroke before. Has a bunch of medical health issues. The reality of the situation was that he doesn't necessarily, and this is like an experience with some disabled people, is that he doesn't necessarily see life worth living. Like, and that's the reality of being disabled, is that sometimes you don't see a life worth living. I don't plan for the future because I don't see a life worth living sometimes.
And yes, that narratively works. Absolutely. That is but that is not what we were talking about before in terms of that. But that does narratively. And as long as that is like communicated in the text, like that makes sense. You just need to give something that is, it's the whole suspension of disbelief, right? You have to give us a reason to believe it.
No, I mean, yeah, this text kind of already reinforces that Dimitri didn't want to live anymore is the thing. He did it because a living creature that he loved, because you can't treat a service dog like it's a freaking robot. That's weird. Like, you still need to love it and like give it attention because it's a living creature with a soul and a thing. And he didn't want to live anymore afterwards, and he basically just did this to kind of like, as I said before, the text also reinforces this. He did this to send a message. It was basically like, look at the harm that you've caused. Look at what you've done. Look at me, and look at like the pain that you've caused by doing nothing. That was the message that he wanted to send. Now, does he live by the end of the book? Yes, he does. But we're not going to talk about that part. Yes. Yeah. Yes, Monsieur.
The spirit, it's your show, girl. You run it.
I know.
Wolf took over. That's the problem.
No, like you both are like doing such a fantastic job tonight, and I'm just so lacklustered. But I'm really enjoying the conversation. I'm really enjoying all the points that you guys are bringing up. Like, you guys have so much to say on the topic that it's
It's my
worth like just sitting back and listening to it.
it's my life's work. I mean, that's kind of what my books are about, is deconstructing morality and deconstructing like our
I mean,
religion.
ultimately, I write noir, and that's the same thing, right? It's about deconstructing morality. It's about when does doing the wrong thing become the right thing?
Way off topic. I taste soap. Okay, we're good.
You taste soap?
Yeah,
Are you having
my
a stroke?
roommate
Do you
is
smell?
making.
Do you smell?
No, no, no. My roommate is making candles, and they have fragrance, and I can taste it in my mouth. And I'm like,
Well, I would be worried if you could taste it in your ear.
oh yeah, that'd be a problem. But yeah, I mean, like this is the body of my work is the thing, and you're right. Like, I don't think that any noir or any kind of like detective mystery works without the exploration of justice, morality, and ethics. Like,
Yeah.
you can't write those things. This is why cozy mystery doesn't work. Okay, I didn't mean
I
to say
fucking
that.
hate cozy mystery. Can
Oh.
we just like I'm sorry. Like I'm gonna make some enemies now. Like, look, every genre is justified, and every genre has its fans, and whatever you like is fine. But man, I don't fucking understand cozy mystery. I don't even know what that means. Like if there's a moving, it probably involves someone dying, and that's not cozy.
Right, and not only
like
that,
what's the
but like
cozy
cozy
mystery? Like,
mystery.
oh my god, I had a dozen chocolate chip cookies on the counter and they're gone. We need to investigate who took my chocolate chip cookies. Let's all talk about it and get Blue in here and maybe my handy dandy notebook, and we can like sit in the thinking chair and figure out who took my chocolate chip cookies. That's cozy. No, someone just bled out on the fucking rug, okay? And like we have to figure out who the psychopath is that just, used a bread knife to like cut someone's head off. Like that's not cozy.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. For me, like, the way that I interpret cozy mystery, and this is all just from personal experience trying to market my book, is like cozy mystery to me just feels like a label of it makes me uncomfortable to talk about morals and ethics, and so I want something that makes me feel comfortable. And I'm like, I don't fuck with that, okay? Like, cozy mystery, um, it's I can see cozy horror. It's Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Cozy horror? What's cozy horror? Explain cozy horror.
I could actually see Wolf actually doing that tag.
Like we're all snuggled up here in our on the overstuffed sofa with our Sherpa blanket on, and while we're doing that, the devil came in and sliced our throat. Like what?
Well, I mean, so Casper the Friendly Ghost would be considered like a cozy horror, I guess. But like
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, but like I guess the problem that I have with the cozy genre, and we're talking about something completely different. I promise we'll get back to the topic, everybody. But Wolf is on a tangent right now. Um, But the problem that I have with the cozy genre is that is the current trajectory when it comes to reading books in general. I have some really great YouTubers that I follow that are really great educators who have really great research on this topic. But the reality of the situation is that we've kind of found ourselves in an era where art no longer reflects our like reality. And a lot of the time, that art that does reflect our reality is oftentimes met with a lot of backlash because people, don't necessarily want to see
It
it.
always is. It always is. No, I'm gonna argue that. There's always like escapism art, and then there's art that has something to say, and the art that has something to say is always met with backlash because it has something to say. Because like it if it's not met with backlash, then it had nothing to say. Like Casper the Friendly Ghost is not going to be met with backlash because who the fuck cares?
No, absolutely. But I'll give you the video, and I'd encourage you to watch it. It's a great fucking video. But the reality of the situation is that we've gotten to this point of rejection of thought and such sanitized media that a lot of people, I have contentions with the cozy genre because it feels like it just continues to perpetuate this concept of like disassociation, because there is a difference between disassociation and escapism, right? I really like the film Death Becomes Her. It's a really great film.
That's a great movie. Yeah,
but I can also look at it and like have some critical thought about it. I'm like, I don't particularly care for the use of, oh, she let herself go for a man, or I don't particularly like the fact that they are centering themselves around a male narrative, but that's fine because the film is great and it's funny. But you see how
also like you have to understand the misogyny and the patriarchy of Hollywood. I mean, always, including now, but especially back in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like,
absolutely. But see, here's the thing. Me and you both can acknowledge that and still enjoy the film. Look,
I love the movie Chasing Amy. Chasing Amy, and even Kevin Smith is like, someone once asked him at one of his Evening with Kevin Smith things, they were like, have you ever thought about writing a science fiction movie? And he goes, I already did. It's called Chasing Amy. He recognizes that like it's absurd and it doesn't like respect like the queer narrative, and it doesn't like there's so many problems with it. But you know what? It's still like a fucking fun movie to watch, and it's still sweet in its own way. And is it like, does it stand up today? No. And does Kevin Smith like himself like say like don't judge me please on this because it was a product of its time? Yes. But things progress and things change, and
like morals.
It is worth recognizing that people grow with society, right? And so this idea that I totally lost my train of thought.
No, you were on a roll there, but no, and like that's where. But that's what I'm concerned about, is the fact that people don't understand the difference between escapism and disassociation, right? Escapism, you're still engaging with the body of work and you're still critically looking at that body of work. What I like about Death Becomes Her is like the practical effects. The practical effects are insane in Death Becomes Her, right?
Yeah, but that hole in her chest, yeah.
Oh, the neck thing.
The head falling off?
Yeah.
That movie is so good. It's so good.
I want to watch it now.
But then the disassociation, like people use escapism and disassociation as two interchangeable words, and they're not. The reality of the situation is, I'm going to dog on Sarah J. Maas and apologize. We're on fucking YouTube and this is a podcast. But for example, Sarah J. Maas, a lot of people read Sarah J. Maas, and yet if you're actually critically looking at the body of work, The body of work basically, denotes the fact that tan and brown people are backwards and savage, and continues to perpetuate that like a thing, and that kind of narrative. It calls asexual people, which I am asexual, soulless people who are lacking passion. But then when you point these things out, the people who are reading these books either one never engaged with that part of the text or completely blanked it out, and that's disassociation. That's not escapism. There's two. It's completely different.
See, the people who experience
No,
the people who experience things more than others will be able to point this stuff out because it's things that they have faced or things that they have seen or things that they have heard, and the people who are not really being able to point it out, are not really seeing the problem with it, are people
yeah.
that have not experienced.
But here's the thing:
I'm going to say this, Wolf. I don't think that that's disassociation. And this is coming from a person who is a master of disassociation. I disassociate, like, talk to my partner. Like, I disassociate more than anyone you'll ever meet. Like, I am absolutely a master. Probably more.
No.
The problem is the people that are running into those problems with, like, Sarah J. Maas are not disassociating. They don't see it. It's disassociation requires you to, like, requires recognition and then, like, oppression, omission of that from yourself. Okay, they don't even recognize it, because here's the thing, and this is an awful thing I'm gonna say, and as awful as it is, I'm gonna look into the camera now and say, I stand by this. Okay, this is something my dad used to tell me when I was growing up, and it isn't perfect, but I believe it and I stand by it. When I would get really upset with how unfair the world was, or how people were dumb, or people just didn't understand, or like my dad would put his hand on my shoulder and he'd say, Neil, you have to remember that 50% of everyone in the world, 50% of all the people you interact with, have an IQ under 100. Because that's how a bell curve works. Okay? And now I'm gonna say I understand that IQ is by many people considered debunked, and I agree with most of those arguments, and I understand that that the whole idea of IQ has a whole bunch of racist and ableist biases built into the notion of IQ, but the overall idea stands in that there is definitely in the world, like, a bell curve of, like, ability to cognitively comprehend and understand and use critical thinking. Okay, and 50% of the people fall below the mean or the median of that bell curve. And so when you're talking about people reading Sarah J. Maas, who is a mass, and I re-emphasize this, mass market fiction writer who is designed to appeal to the largest possible population, okay, then yes, her stuff that has, like, problematic stuff in it, the people who are reading it and not catching the problematic portions of it are not doing it because they're disassociating it. It's because they literally don't see it. They literally don't get it.
So I'm going to disagree with you, at least with portions of it. at least, even if it's not disassociation, it's cognitive dissonance, because we were in a group of people who were part of the communities that what do you call it, Sarah J. Maas is racist towards, and also
I know what you're talking about, yes. And
yes,
so I agree. There are individual people that you can point out that are just having a bit of cognitive dissonance, right?
yeah.
I
And then
agree.
also, I would disagree and call it disassociation after a while, because a lot of these people have been educated multiple times at this point.
I don't think they have. So this is the thing, right? This is like reading comments on a Neil deGrasse Tyson video and being like, all the people that are commenting on this should be like, they're watching a Neil deGrasse Tyson video all the way through. They should be understanding the idea of astronomy and physics and science and the scientific method. But it's not true. Like, there are so many people that just watch and they have no idea. They absolutely positively do not understand anything that he's talking about, and they just hear something and they want to make a comment. I do not believe that the majority of the people that are reading those books have two neurons to rub together in their brain in terms of critical thinking. I don't think that they've been educated. I don't think that they understand. I don't think that they're able to look at it and say, oh, this is problematic, or this doesn't make sense, or this is cognitive dissonance. They don't. They're just like, I picked up a book at the airport that I wanted to read on the beach over the weekend, and I have no thought process about it. I do not have any ability to think critically about it as literature. I'm just reading words in order to pass time.
And that hurts my soul in general.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's the reality of the world. like you have to understand that cognitively you're in like the 1%, right? And so like when you're getting frustrated at the bottom 70%, well, sorry, but like that's still like, you're talking about almost 3/4 of the population does not have the ability to make the connections that you're making.
I will admit that hurts my soul, but like it's also because like I just grew up in an era, like early 2000s, where if you look at any like movie from that time, anybody who read a book was pretentious and smart in the media. And like that was always like the assumption that if you read books, you're super smart. And these days they're like, you don't need to be super smart to read a book. You're like, no, but I'd like you to have more than one thought.
Yeah. I can't remember what it's from. I feel like it's from a Kevin Smith thing, but it might be an Aaron Sorkin thing. But they talk about how people are calling other people smart, and they're using smart as a pejorative. And it's true. Like, that's why we have the word, the idea of like the nerd or the geek. You're basically saying you're smart and that makes you uncool. You're smart and that is a pejorative. Like, I am saying that you being smart is bad, because good people, cool people, the mainstream, the people you want to be like are not smart. They are just like coasting, and that is our society. God, we are off the rails here, but you want to know why I hate sports so much? It's not sports. Like, I think going out and being physically active is good, and I think that training your body to do interesting and cool things is good. I think sports are problematic because they teach people to be dumb. They tell everyone all you need to focus on is what other people are doing athletically, which is not an intellectual pursuit at all. It's just watch these people use their body it's basically pornography, except it's not like it's athletic instead of sexual, but it's basically, I just want to watch these people use their bodies and see who can use their bodies better, and that's all I care about. And it is training people. I mean, think about it. When you go to a party, you're not allowed to talk about politics or religion, right? Which are the only two things that would actually matter to a person in their life. Like the politics of how government is affecting you, or the religion in terms of how your morals and
Those
ethics are
things make
affecting you in your
people
life.
angry.
So what they want you to do is talk about sports, because sports doesn't matter, right? And so they say all you should focus on is sports and sitcoms. And so go to a party and talk about sports and sitcoms, because you can't offend anyone, but it also doesn't make anybody think about anything.
I don't know if
It's
our
true,
Because you can't even talk about morals.
Right.
what do you what do you call it? I don't know if you're still here, Mads, but no, you're absolutely correct. Both of us have both truths in it. I'm not. I agree with you. Both majority of people kind of struggle with some cognitive thinking, and because I don't like necessarily claiming people as stupid and stuff like that, because I feel like that's rooted in ableism. So I try really hard not to have like charged language. But
That's nice.
what was that?
Pulled
Ooh,
up the
yeah,
comment on the side.
yes. What do you call it? I just don't like using charged language. It's really hard to like thing. But I also do believe that a lot of people just don't have like the cognitive skill set, and because cognitive thinking is a skill that you practice, and if you're not practicing it, then you kind of lose it.
Well, I think what their problem is that we're no longer getting cognitively challenged the way that we should be most of the time. Like it's just not there.
Well, we can go back to the cozy fiction, and about how people
No.
are basically training and also like rejecting the notion of being able to cognitively think.
I'm gonna stumble upon this corpse.
I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. I have a beef with the cozy genre. People are gonna like take this out of context and be like, "Locanzo Wolf, he hates the cozy genre."
I know I do. I'm willing to
It'll be like
die on
I'm
that
like
hill.
sitting here
Like,
thinking about. I would really love to see the hate mail, because I think I would just laugh like reading it.
the closest thing that I can think of to cozy mystery that I would accept is the old, like, that I grew up on, Jessica Fletcher and Murder, She Wrote, right? Except it wasn't cozy. People are still fucking dying. And also, I look at it and I go, who the fuck would ever invite Jessica Fletcher to a party? Because every fucking party she goes to, somebody dies. So it's like, hey, are you inviting Jessica? Because someone's gonna die if you do. Like, the best thing to do is just not invite her anywhere.
I'm sorry. Just before you even mentioned Murder, She Wrote, I was thinking about Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah. And believe me, I grew up. I think I've seen every episode of Murder, She Wrote. And I, like, even when she moved to New York and like was a professor, and I hated that. And like, even as a kid, I was like, what the fuck is this? But that's like the closest I would get to accepting cozy mystery. But man, I like mystery. Like that's so, it's so dumb. It's and
but
like,
it's how it's
and also
like,
but also like, and I say this as a person who doesn't particularly like fantasy, but I don't understand cozy fantasy. Like the idea that you're
there's no
reading
such thing as cozy fantasy.
there is.
There is not.
There is.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, what do
And
they do? Go around holding
nothing.
hands?
That's the whole point.
Singing
That's the
Kumbaya?
whole point. They don't fucking do anything. It's just like, oh, like I'm going to write a story about a cafe where orcs and elves come and they have conversations and drink beers and maybe a fairy comes through and it's like, yeah, but nothing happens. Like, you have to have conflict to have narrative. Like, that's the whole. I'm sorry. I don't like it. I don't like this idea of I want to read something where nothing happens.
I mean, like,
Well,
the conflict.
if you make the conversation interesting enough, and you make the characters or the thing in it like,
you still have to have conflict.
The problem that I tend to have is a lot of people are getting into this cozy genre. Yeah, I'm about to talk again. But the problem that I have with the cozy genre, and the problem that I have with most genres these days, is that the people writing them don't understand the history of the genres that they're writing in, right? Like, cozy to me, it just feels like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's a word. It feels like code for sanitization, if that makes sense. Because and I remember having this or seeing this idea presented by a individual who's a black educator on media discussing this, but they talk about how, like, when you do cozy fantasy, you're still participating in a lot of, like, the problematic narratives, but then, like, the one thing that fantasy has going for it is that even if it does participate in these problematic ideas, is that it still addresses those problematic ideas. With cozy fantasy, it completely ignores those and then participates in the problematic ideas.
I think
Right.
on that note,
So here's what I think it is. Right? It's this idea that I want to write a fantasy book and I want it to be rated G. Right? If you were using movie ratings, like, I don't even want this to be PG. I want it to be rated G. I want it to be something that anybody you could read it to your kids. Well, you know what? Like, I'm sorry, and I understand the biases that I come with, but I grew up in the 80s, okay? And we didn't, like, there was violence in kids movies. Like, we went and saw The Dark Crystal, right? And like, there's just, I don't understand this idea of, like Wolf says, like, this sterilization and this saying we're not going to have conflict. Like, it's the fucking Milo and Otis of literature, and we're just going to have it be feel good from beginning to end, so that the whole time you're just like, oh, it was so sweet. Like, that's not writing. You have to have conflict. And the fact of the matter is, like, I when I read to my kids who are 5, 8, and 10, like, we're reading Stephen King before bed. Like, you just, and if you're a grown adult who wants your narrative and your fiction to be completely sterilized to the point of being rated G, like, that's fine. Like, I like, you're entitled to what you like and what you want, and I think that should be available to you. But, like, I have no bandwidth for it at all.
You're a cute dog. No, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to my dog who came over. Hi, baby. What you doing? Okay. But no, it, like, I don't see. I don't necessarily believe in, like, the concept of conflict because, you know, I read manga and anime and I participate in slice of life. But I think that the conflict comes within relationships. But I also just don't necessarily like the mystery genre exists to what do you call it, have conversations about things like morality, ethics, and values. The mystery genre exists to discuss politics, and then when you're sitting there like, I want a cozy mystery, you're like,
the mystery genre does not exist to discuss politics. I mean, it can, but it does not exist to discuss politics.
Willow.
You can have a straight up murder mystery.
You could have a straight up murder mystery, but what do you call it? This is where the mystery has one of those like. So when I say that mystery is something that to discuss politics, that's kind of where my mysteries come in, because you have to. This is the part where like, how do I word myself here? Sorry, I'm trying to articulate something here. No, you can have a straight up murder mystery, but the reality of the situation is, when I say discussing politics in mystery, I'm talking about like recognizing that the mystery genre in itself has been kind of used as a tool for
Sure.
political messaging. That's what I'm trying to say.
Most of fiction has. I mean, science fiction, like dystopian, like, fiction. We just finished up the run of Handmaid's Tale on Hulu based on Margaret Atwood's book, and the follow-up, The Testaments, is coming based on her follow-up book. Like, you're discussing the issues of today in the context of a fictional world, absolutely, but there's nothing to say you can't have Blue's Clues that is just like Mr. Salt and Miss Pepper, like figuring out, like, who's coming to visit today. It's still a mystery. It's still got clues. You just have to sit down in a thinking chair and think, and it can be rated G and still be a mystery, and not political, but also, like, that's for like 3-year-olds. And so I guess my point is, like, if you're 30 years old and Blue's Clues is your level of mystery that you want to engage in, then either A, you don't want to engage in mystery, and that's okay. That's okay. Like, it's okay. Or B, you just need to like I don't know, like what are you trying to get out of fiction, I guess? Like,
Right,
exactly. Because, like, I don't know, I don't understand, and I'm trying to find a way to say this that isn't like insulting, but I don't understand. Like, I don't understand how you can be a grown adult. Like, if you're a grown adult and you want to read things that are just feel good, then fine. Like, go and, like, read romance novels, clean romance novels or whatever, or go and read like lit fic or, whatever. But why on earth would you ask for a mystery novel that is sanitized to the point of being rated G? Like, I don't get it. Like, it literally does not make any sense.
Right,
to me
exactly. But weirdly enough, this goes back into like the conversation about morality. Weirdly enough, what do you call it? And acts of violence by not acting, and like when you engage in sanitized media without branching out further and rejecting the notion of any other like critical information, then you are still enacting violence onto your community by simply not engaging outside of sanitized media.
Well, you guys certainly have a lot to say.
Yeah, I think that like, I think we might be
We got distracted.
It's okay.
Yeah, but, well, I think there's a danger in overgeneralizing the term violence and act of violence, to the point where it loses its
See, I don't
meaning.
necessarily agree with that because speaking from like an indigenous perspective here or like a POC perspective, like the concept that like I'm bringing up is concepts that we talk about in like POC spaces and indigenous spaces, because the reality of the situation is that the only way that we understand violence is through physical. And the thing is that I'm trying to normalize the concept or this idea that like you can still harm somebody through your actions, through like the mind and through the soul, you know.
Absolutely. I don't think
A
that,
lot of
and I'm
people
not
don't
trying to
understand
diminish that.
It's just not widely understood.
Yeah,
A
so
lot of people think
Yeah,
there's only
but
one way to hurt somebody. Or if they do hurt emotionally, they're like, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal."
yeah, exactly. So the reason why I'm using violence so much in this context is because of that. It's like, oh, if you've not been put in that experience before, it does. How do you? So when I was homeless, I used to sit in the front of the grocery stores, and we would be asking for, you know, just either something to eat or money, and you would have people who just walked past you like you were translucent, and then they would come back out with like full carts of food, not even like one or two items, but like full, you know, carts of food. And how is that not an act of violence? Does that make sense? You know, when you basically condemning people to death.
well, I will tell you how. And
Oh,
it is
right.
a
We gotta
difficult
start
thing.
winding down.
What?
We gotta start winding down.
Okay. Winding down in what direction?
And I'm gonna be signing off soon.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. We can hold off on this.
We
Wolf
can
has a
do that on my next one. We can just continue it.
yeah, we
Yeah.
could do that. Wolf has a completely and totally different ADHD thought. I apologize. My brain just kind of gave me a nugget of information. Do I want to write in a completely dead trope and dead genre right now? Because
Yes.
apparently I want to hurt myself. I want to write a zombie book, everybody, but not in the way that everybody thinks.
Well, first of all, I
no.
don't think zombie is a dead trope. I think it's a
It's not a
declining
dead
trope,
trope.
but I don't think it's dead.
No, it's
But we're gonna let Vespera wrap things up. It's her show tonight, and she's getting ready to sign off. So, Vespera, give us your closing thoughts and wrap us up for the night.
I'm so lackluster compared to you two tonight. I just want to say this. You guys have had a lot to say. And it's very interesting hearing you both speak, and I appreciate your viewpoints on things.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for having us tonight, and we will be back in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from tonight, and Wolf will be hosting, and he's got his own topics to discuss, and we will be back then.
Oh yes, and I actually have a prompt, and I'm teasing.
No,
What's your prompt?
Vespera had a prompt too. We had some technical difficulties. We didn't do readings tonight, but that's okay. That's okay. It was on everybody's part, and by everybody I mean me. And so we will, yeah, we will have writings next time.
Yes, I'm just teasing everybody.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
Vespera, thank you for a wonderful writers group tonight, and we will see you all in 2 weeks.
Appreciate you guys and appreciate you too, listeners. Bye.
Appreciate.
Bye.